Dreamforce Virtual 2025 Tour. This is a special event being hosted by the Denver MuleSoft Meetup Group. My name is Brian Skevicus. I'm the Denver MuleSoft Meetup Group Leader, and I am pleased to be joined by one of my fellow MuleSoft ambassadors, Brad Ringer. Brad, you're going to have two presentations today. The first one is going to be Brad's that was presented at Dreamforce. And the second one is something I presented outside of Dreamforce. I missed the deadline to register for this for Dreamforce, but then I was told, yes, please make it as part of the tour. And I'm going to talk about AI enabling your EDI solution. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Brad to talk about AT&T's shift to Data 360, which is the product formerly known as Data Cloud.
Yes.
So Brad, go for it.
Hey, everybody. Thanks. Welcome. I'm Brad Ringer. I'm a principal system engineer at AT&T. Hard to believe. I've been at AT&T for 24 years, almost 25 in January. I was college hire. As Brian said, I'm a MuleSoft ambassador, 5X certified across MuleSoft and Salesforce, and I'm the platform architect for a B2B Salesforce implementation. And I'm an avid fisherman up here in Seattle. So on Puget Sound or rivers, that's where I enjoy spending my time. And today I'm going to share how AT&T unified our fragmented customer data using Salesforce Data 360. And forgive me, Salesforce, they love to change the name of things, right? I may call it Data Cloud. I may call it, it'll either be Data Cloud or Data 360. And we'll cover our migration journey, technical execution, governance, and lessons learned. And the goal is to show how unifying data drives agility, smarter engagement, and business value. And thank you for being here. Appreciate you joining and listening to my spiel here. And my time at AT&T, I college hire. Was hired as a tester, but a data analyst, developer, enterprise architect. Even did some production support time in there, and ultimately am in my current role as a solution architect. And what I've learned across all of those kind of jobs is the more complicated you make things, the more difficult it is to develop, support, maintain, and manage. So elegant solutions and picking the right tool for the job and keeping it simple. And kind of a allegory related to that, I had to build a fence in my backyard. I was falling down, I had to go and do new poles and everything else. So I had 10 new poles I had to dig for this fence, and borrowed a post hole digger from my neighbor. Went out there and went and dug the holes, got the first one done. There were so many rocks and everything. It took me about 90 minutes just to dig one hole. So I said, heck with this, right? I ran to Home Depot, got a gas-powered post hole digger, brought that home, had all the rest of the holes dug in 2 hours, and then returned it to Home Depot in the time it would have taken me to do 2 or 3. So pick the right tool for the job. And so relating that to AT&T, our journey with Salesforce started in 2019. We were moving off of a legacy CRM tool, Siebel, if anybody remembers it, for our B2B Salesforce implementation. We started kind of small with a small group of folks, and we had a successful POC, and that led to a larger footprint where really AT&T embraced Salesforce. So we've got, as part of that, we've got that B2B instance where we built out a full flow from lead, opportunity, quote, proposal to order on the B2B side. And then we also built out on the B2C side an org more focused on transactional data, meaning call center based, kind of quick hit retail store type solutions. So we've got 2 instances, a B2B that's more that longer sales cycle, and a B2C instance that's more the quick hits. And part of that as well was a huge shift on the B2C side off of a custom solution to Salesforce. And that big deal that we signed was hundreds of millions of dollars, but it put us in a unique situation where we have all the tools in the Salesforce tool chest, right? We don't have to worry about licenses. We don't have to worry about all of these different things. If there's a tool there's probably 3 different Salesforce tools that can do the same thing, right? The way Salesforce builds things. So how do we pick and choose which tool we use, whether that's MuleSoft or Data Cloud or whatever else? That's really kind of the solution that we've, a unique position we're in now. And so, as I touched on, we've got those two B2B orgs, two orgs, B2B and B2C, 2 instances. But as part of that, there was no sharing of the data, right? Historically, our customer data has been very siloed. Salesforce for CRM, Heroku for a prospecting use case, I'll touch on a little later on in the presentation, where different data warehouses for analytics and different SaaS apps for marketing. I mean, up to 6 months ago, we still had an IBM mainframe that was managing all of our account data. Thankfully, that's been migrated to the cloud, but I mean, there's lots of different tools. And those different silos created sync headaches, right? You've got to have account data that maps between all of these tools and keys and everything to be able to kind of come up with a unified solution. And that limited our agility and it made real-time decisions difficult. And that fragmentation meant teams spent more time kind of reconciling that data, bringing it together than acting on those insights. So how did we solve that? Well, our vision is a unified data 360, one platform for all customer data, 2 orgs, 1 data source, and 1 source of truth, enabling single setup for data, unifying and centralizing our data management and administration. We call that Data 361. So we've got those 2 B2B or B2C and B2B orgs, right? And one of the unique things we did is we built out 1 Data Cloud 360 instance, right? 1 instance. So 2 orgs, but how do we keep that data distinct, right? So we've got business specific data, maybe an opportunity or something related to a business on the business side. And we've got a consumer side where we've got more kind of call it average call time or something like that that's managed within that B2C side. How do we keep that data distinct between those 2 orgs and managed within Data 360, but still provide a unified space where, we can provide account information or contact information that's really shared between those 2 instances? Well, what we've done is create a data space for each org and then a unified data space in the middle that's shared between those 2 instances. Kind of this hybrid model is the best of both worlds. Let's segment our data by business case with distinct data spaces and unify foundational data with joins within that shared data space. And one of the key things we focused on as well is having all of our data that we need within Data 360. And this unifies all of our data, not just for operational uses within Salesforce, but really our AI use cases, right? All of that data is in one place. It's available for any of our agentic use cases within Salesforce. Some of the other key areas is its centralized licensing, right? Everything is within a single Data 360 instance with the B2C org kind of as that home org where that management lives, and our B2B org is the companion org. So, but all of the licenses for Data 360 live within that instance. And it drives reuse because we've got that single instance across that side, right? And so how do we bring that data in to Data 360? Well, we're a huge Snowflake shop. So all of our CDO teams use Snowflake for all of their analytics and reporting data sets. So how do we get that data present and make it available within Data 360? Well, with Snowflake, with zero copy within Data 360, we're able to bring those Snowflake tables in, make them available within Data 360, and thus our Salesforce instances without actually having to replicate that data. But we've also got use cases where, hey, I've got an old Oracle database. Some user has an Excel spreadsheet or a SharePoint where they've got a bunch of data. How do I take that data set, more that unstructured kind of less structured data from different sources and bring that into Data 360? And that's where we leverage the power of MuleSoft with its connector base and everything to allow us to bring in those disparate data sets via the ingestion API into Data 360, but using MuleSoft really as that transformation engine to pull those distinct data sources outside of Snowflake into the Data 360 environment. And so that use case I talked about, we'll jump in here. So long story here. So typically most Salesforce instances, right? Market or data comes in from our marketing teams. Leads are assigned to sellers. They're worked. You go the normal opportunity type CRM flow. So I'm a seller. Let's pretend here for a little bit. I've got a lead for 123 Main Street at Joe's Crab Shack. They're looking for fiber service. So go meet with Joe. Great. Meeting went perfect. He wants to sign up for service. I'm out of there. We've placed the order. I've got an hour to kill because that meeting went so well. So what do I do with that time? What we've done is built a tool within Salesforce with Heroku on the back end that sellers love that allows me to go and find, I met with Joe's Crab Shack, allows me to go and find other customers or prospects. Could be somebody that has had a lot of trouble tickets or billing issues that I need to go knock on their door and say, hi, hope things are going okay. Or it may just be somebody that just moved into the building that we just had fiber enabled that we're able to sell to, right? So it allows a customer or a seller to go and find their own kind of prospects that they can go and reach out to and work with. And with this solution, right, we built that with Heroku behind the scenes as that data set to provide that information to the seller via Lightning Web Components within Salesforce. But the main problem with that was data replication, right? I've got account data. I've got contact data. I've got to load that data into Salesforce. I've got to load that data into this Heroku use case or Heroku database with Postgres, right? And I've got to load it twice. So it was stored in both Heroku and Salesforce. And that caused kind of some confusion and latency because the seller would say, hey, this updated in Salesforce. It's not in Heroku, vice versa. And we know at this point how I like things simple. So why would I want to load that data into two distinct places, right? So what we did was migrate that Heroku data set into Data 360, eliminating that redundant storage and simplified our architecture and ensured sellers always worked off the latest data. So how did we do it, right? So we load it once into Salesforce. No more mule jobs in two places, right? And we bring all of those data sets, right, either into via MuleSoft or with Snowflake, bring distinct data sets into Data Cloud and make them available within that service. We then have repointed those Lightning Web Components from Salesforce to Data Cloud rather than this Heroku instance. It's simplified our MuleSoft data jobs. Now we load once to Salesforce and enrich that data within Data Cloud. And the summary of kind of how we did it, right? We solved it by populating that customer 360 with CRM data. That's when we really loaded that data once into Salesforce and then make it available within 360, right? You can zero copy that data from Salesforce within into 360. We integrated those external sources with MuleSoft and the Bring Your Own Lake connectivity with Snowflake. That allowed us to create unified accounts and work lists within Data Cloud and enabled sellers to segment and act on that real-time data. And the impact of that has been faster segmentation, reduced Heroku spend, and better cross-sell opportunities. And most importantly, for me, less data loading and simplification. So kind of covered the Data 360 use case. And this is kind of a unique piece related to AT&T, right, is tools, right? We've got lots of different tools to do the same job in a lot of cases, right? Analytics and activations. So we have three tools that can meet our needs in a lot of different ways. CRM Analytics for operational reporting, Data 360 for that real-time activation, and Tableau for deep dives and visualization. Each has its strengths depending on the use case. So we use a hybrid approach that delivers faster value than picking one of these. Right? So how do we choose? Right? How do we choose which of these options we're going to do? Right, for the data set that we're going to present within Salesforce. And the key question we always ask is the data actionable, right? And what does actionable mean, really? Well, it's available to actions within Salesforce. When we say actions, I mean, that can be something like a trouble ticket that you go and work, or information about a customer that you then go and create a ticket based off of. Or it could be an agent taking that same action, right? It could be a contract that's expiring that drives an agent to then go and create a lead or an opportunity that's then worked by a customer or by a seller, right? But the problem with that is, right, by going with Data 360, there's some drawbacks, right? So yes, it's great. Yes, all of it's within 360, single place, but it's a usage-based model, right? So even though you're bringing in that data via Snowflake, you still have to be with Bring Your Own Lake or importing that data via MuleSoft into Salesforce, you still have to worry about that volume, right? So that's one area that we monitor and kind of, we don't bring in a billion inventory records. We bring in the smaller subset of the inventory records that we actually need, right? And the other drawback to that is a little bit of the complexity, right? You've got a DLO and DMO setup that has to take place within Data Cloud, as well as the monitoring and maintenance associated with that, and the data governance. So what happens if the data is not actionable? Well, then we've got two options, right? And these are more reporting type use cases when we're bringing data into Salesforce. So for CRM analytics, how we decide is, okay, not actionable, but is this reporting based off of Salesforce data joined with some other external data, or just distinctly Salesforce data, right? So you can bring within CRM analytics Snowflake data in with zero copy with live data sets. The cool thing with CRM analytics as well is it's lower complexity than Data Cloud. But what about, I've got a little widget that I need a little reporting widget within Salesforce, right? That displays red light, green light, right? I don't need that data within Salesforce. There's no drill down or anything associated with it. I honestly just need that little widget. So how do I bring that data in to drive that widget and make that available within Salesforce without actually having to copy that data into any of these solutions? Well, that's when we leverage Tableau, right? No need for the data within Salesforce, but bringing in kind of that with an LWC, you can bring in that Tableau kind of widget within Salesforce and make it available. We definitely aren't leveraging the power of Tableau totally, but allows us to keep that data external. So 3 tools. Data 360 is best for real-time activation, CRM analytics for operational reporting, and Tableau for complex analysis. So kind of wrapping things up, the one thing I'd want you guys to walk away from this presentation with is simplify. Find the right tool for the job. Don't build based on your direct requirements. Think bigger and simpler. And I hope this provided a view into AT&T's Data 360 use case and a little bit of kind of overview of our architectural process. So thank you very much.
Great, Brad. That was great. You did mention that you're using a D360. Can you perhaps share potentially some AI applications with that data?
Yeah. So one of the key things we're looking at is bringing in kind of trouble ticketing and other data sets. We have AT&T. I'm going to be kind and say tens of ticketing systems that we've got out there. So bringing in all of those distinct data sets within Data Cloud to then drive an agent to go look at, say, a billing inquiry. So what we're leveraging is really that bill inquiry comes in, you don't think about how complex the use case is for a seller, for a support team. They've got to go find the contract. They've got to go make sure it's the right version of the contract, all of these things. And what we've been able to do is build that use case bring all that data in within Data Cloud, and then just build it and distinct agents on top of it that all work together to provide that kind of bill inquiry support within that Data Cloud instance.
Is AI enabling your EDI solution? So this was actually created outside of Dreamforce at a MuleSoft EDI summit late in the summer. And I'm like, gee, can I get this into Dreamforce? And they said, it's too late, but please present this during the virtual roadshow. So that is what I'm doing. So again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Skevicus. I'm also a MuleSoft ambassador. I'm based out of Denver. I am the Denver MuleSoft Meetup group leader. So what I'm going to talk about today is what I call classic EDI, which some of you are familiar with, and then evolving your EDI solution to include automation, so AI-based automation EDI, and finally evolving it to agentic EDI and how to potentially implement that. And then I'll leave you with a few key takeaways. I am going to throw up Salesforce's standard forward-looking statements because there is one part of this presentation which is going to touch on a beta product. So again, please make all your decisions based on something that actually exists as opposed to something that may or may not exist in the future. So many of you may be familiar with what I call classic EDI. EDI, as most people view it, is basically data, static data transfer. I like to say what you're actually doing is you're exposing your business services to your trading partners. So the solution for classic EDI with MuleSoft is called Anypoint Partner Manager. And Anypoint Partner Manager provides most of the abilities required for an EDI solution. Protocol mediation, so going from using AS2 or SFTP or HTTPS, validating your documents, whether they are X12 or EDIFACT format. An important part of EDI is non-repudiation. Basically, yes, you did indeed send me that purchase order or that invoice. Yes, I did indeed send you that advanced ship notice out, which is important. And APM also allows you to do message level monitoring, so an individual transaction, and also segments within that message, because some messages may maintain multiple segments. The advantage of using Anypoint Partner Manager, if you've already invested in MuleSoft, is it allows you to leverage some of your existing APIs, especially the ones that are talking to your backend systems. This is clearly a programmatic solution. It is a very powerful solution. It does reduce some of the coding required, especially around the trading partner management part, but you still do have to do some of the transformations from the EDI formats, non-EDI formats. So what do you do when you're working with trading partners that don't support classic EDI data structures? We run into this use case a lot where customers will have vendors that do support EDI, but then they're also going to have vendors that send them PDFs of purchase orders, of invoices. This particular solution example is a healthcare 270 or a benefits eligibility request. As you could see here, this is clearly not an EDI 270 format. However, it has all the fields that you would expect in a 270 document. So the solution is to use intelligent document processing. What you're doing is you're setting up a document action to go ahead and basically intelligently extract the fields out of this document. This particular use case is using Einstein underneath the covers. You could see I just said, hey, extract the provider name, please format in JSON. And when I ran this test case, you could see it is very confident it found all the fields. So what I'm now doing is I'm extending my EDI platform to support the manual processes of, in this case, of manually entering this information. You could use Partner Manager to manage both the partners that have unstructured business documents, whether they're PDFs or JPEGs, and also your structured business documents. Save one solution handling both, that the data ultimately gets into the common ERP like SAP. A lot of automated solutions are going to use a collaborative tool such as Slack or Teams to especially handle some of the outliers. Like I wasn't confident, the IDP may say I wasn't so confident I extracted the right information for the total cost or whatever it happens to be. So this is where the solution architecture for both IDP. You could still use Train Partner Manager and still leverage your backend APIs. So I've spoken about what I call classic EDI. I've started talking about automating EDI, but what's the next step? And this is called autonomous or agentic EDI. What we're seeing is this really allows you to take the solution you developed and extend it to handle specific use cases. Dynamic purchase order optimization is a big one. Basically, it may allow you to do some automated fulfillment, or you may be able to go ahead and autonomously negotiate new terms based on this purchase order. I really like the fraud detection possibilities, where I'm really looking for anomalies in my invoices, whether it's in pricing, quantities, or terms. I can go ahead and start matching invoice numbers with contracts, POs, etc. Again, I'm looking for fraudulent transactions here. And if I can enable my agents to go ahead and take action, I could let them flag or even resolve these discrepancies autonomously. But what are some of the roadblocks to adopting agentic EDI, or for that matter, any agentic solution? Brad's presentation about Data 360 is probably the biggest part. It is data quality. Your agents are going to be good as your data. If you're feeding your agents bad or inaccurate data, they're going to make inaccurate decisions. I think vendors, both the platform vendors and the AI vendors, understate the impact of change management to adopting an agentic solution, because now you're retraining your staff or other people on your business processes, and that's going to require a significant change management. I'm an integration person. Without integration, your agents can't really take any actions that they may need to as part of your solution. Governance is, of course, a big deal. Basically, that is the guardrails you apply to your agent on what they can and cannot do. And of course, security and compliance. What data can my agents access? What can they not? What are agents allowed to do, et cetera? And so it requires all that. So once you create your basically your roadmap that has solutions for these particular roadblocks, then you can go ahead and implement a good solid agentic EDI solution. So how do we go about implementing these solutions with MuleSoft? I already spoke about the classic EDI uses Anypoint Partner Manager. When you start automating EDI, especially with document automation, that's going to be IDP or intelligent document processing. On the agentic EDI part, this has evolved recently, so there's a few different options. MuleSoft has a series of connectors. If you're just going to do a one-off pull to an LLM, you may be able to use the AI connectors. You can go ahead and create API, which is in effect an agent that uses MuleSoft AI chain. And I'll show you an example of that. We're actually using this at a customer right now to invoke OpenAPI to correct some verbiage that gets sent over to a API where they pay per cost to make sure that the data they're feeding this API is always going to be accurate. If you have an API that you want an agent to invoke, that's where Model Context Protocol or MCP comes into play. And finally, if you want to enable direct agent-to-agent communications, there's a few different solutions. MuleSoft has an A-to-A connector, which is still in beta as of this recording. That, of course, is relying on the A-to-A protocol. Agent Fabric has something called Agent Broker, which allows you to orchestrate interactions A-to-A. Or if you're working with Salesforce agents, you could use the MuleSoft Agentforce connector. So to Brad's point, there's a few different tools to implement, enable agent-to-agent communication. There's a best tool for your particular solution. So let's show you a few of these options. First of all, MuleSoft AI chain. This is great for basically creating an API, which is an agent, which may be doing multiple interactions. This is a particular example is when we're doing what is known as advanced retrieval augmented generation. Basically, a user submitting a query. They're going to use the LLM to refine a query to see what gets me the best similarity search results. I take the best, and I actually perform a retrieval augmented generation and send the result back as part of the user. Again, I'm dealing with multiple agentic AI interactions here, not necessarily an orchestration. This is definitely sequential. So that's where AI chain, I could basically create an API, which in effect is my agents. Again, on model context protocol, this is where I'm exposing my APIs as agents. If I'm solely working in Salesforce and using Agentforce agents, I would expose my MuleSoft APIs in Topic Center, and that allows the agents to take action by invoking APIs. If I'm working with non-Salesforce agents, like other SaaS agents or maybe homegrown agents, that's where model context protocol comes into play. So basically, my API becomes an MCP server. The agents are, in effect, MCP clients, and they're invoking my APIs. And finally, you may have heard of MuleSoft's Agent Fabric. This is MuleSoft's reference architecture for the agentic enterprise. You see we have a few different layers here. Of course, you have the human-machine interaction. We have the digital channels on which you may be communicating, whether it's through chat, whether it's through voice, web, mobile, whatever. Where are your agents existing? Are they within a platform such as Salesforce or maybe one of your other SaaSes? Have you homegrown some agents? And when do you need to get a human involved when an agent cannot take action based on the guardrails you've assigned? How do you manage and monitor and secure all these agents? Well, that's where Agent Fabric comes into play. If you are familiar with Flex Gateway, Agent Fabric is very analogous in terms of concepts. I could register all my agents in my enterprise in one place. I apply policies to them. I could observe how they're performing, and especially when they can't fulfill an action, I can go ahead and create agent-to-agent interactions, basically almost creating a business process that instead of as a business process engine is agent-to-agent. And of course, I can go ahead and enable my APIs as agents through MCP. Agent Fabric can sit on top of the existing APIs and the existing composable architecture concepts that we're familiar with MuleSoft. And of course, I have my core applications and my ability to do some data analysis on the data, which is going through my system, like what Brad was talking about. The source for this particular architecture is at this blog post, Architecting the Agentic Enterprise, which is just simply available on blogs@mulesoft.com. So I've spoken about basically evolving your EDI solution from static data transfer, which is what I call classic EDI, to adding elements of automation, and then finally to an agentic EDI solution and the components in MuleSoft that you can go ahead and implement it. So what are some key takeaways from this? First of all, you want to assess what your existing EDI platform can support. We're currently migrating a customer off of a legacy implementation, which is about 15 years old, which they cannot evolve. Once that migration is done, now I have the ability to develop a roadmap for automating some of the EDI business processes and ultimately looking at some autonomous EDI applications. Customers definitely interested in doing that. You may want to be looking at that too. However, agentic AI, or in this case, agentic EDI, is all the rage. There are some significant roadblocks that you have to think about and have a solution for in order to really realize the business benefits of agentic EDI, or for that matter, any agentic applications. So with that, I want to thank you for attending this Dreamforce 25 tour, both covering what Brad did with AT&T Shift to Data 360, and then AI enabling your EDI solution. Is Agent Fabric a renamed Mule AI chain? No, MuleSoft AI chain is the open source solution, which I think is built on Lang4j underneath the covers. AI chain does include the AI chain connector and a few other connectors, which you can go ahead and interact directly with, like LLMs, with voice, with vector databases, and etc. So no, Agent Fabric is not a renamed AI chain. Agent Fabric allows you to monitor your holistic your agents within your enterprise. So not only the ones you develop using MuleSoft, but also the ones that may be in Salesforce and whatever other SaaS you have or any ERP, and allows you to provide policies. So slightly different. Basically, AI chain, I'm creating an API, which is in effect an agent. Agent Fabric allows me to monitor and apply policies to all my agents. Excellent question. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for attending this Dreamforce Virtual Roadshow. I will be posting all the content along with Brad's presentation, my presentation, and recording into the Denver MuleSoft Meetup group. And I want to, once again, thanks and have a great rest of your day. And Brad, thank you for spending time today. Really do appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.